the legacy of Hugo Chavez. I'm going to ask Brother Igor to speak, and I'll ask you guys to give him a warm welcome. And I think it's really, like I said before in the introduction, I think the Basque Country struggle is absolutely a signature struggle for us to learn from. So please welcome Brother Igor. Thank you.
So that's always a tricky question, is where to start. Normally people know something about the Basque Country. Most of the times people know a lot about the Basque Country, and sometimes there is people who know even more than me about certain parts of Basque history. I will go back and then come fast forward just to give you a complete idea of what's the struggle in the Basque Country and what's it about. So, well, let's start in the Easter Rising. Easter Rising 1916, the Basque Country has only one nationalistic party. It's a quite conservative Christian Democrat Party, which is still exists nowadays, which is the PNP, and there is some other movements besides that are more left, Christian-based left groups that would be nationalistic also. There are some years of development, and then in 1936 the Spanish Civil War explodes. The conservative Christian Democrat Party in the Basque Country decides to stand with the Republic, but the Basque Country is divided in two. In the southern part, the people goes, or at least the elites go with the uprising, and in the northern part, the PNB and the anarchists, the socialists and the pro-independence left parties stand together, make a government, which will be the first Basque government of history, and stand against the fascist troops for nearly 2 years. Finally they lose, they have to run away in fact, and so the Basque soldiers have to run away from the Basque Country. They render themselves to the Italian fascist troops before rendering themselves to the Spanish troops, and then the PNB runs away and sets up a government in exile. That's 37. From 37 to 59, there is nothing in the Basque Country. There is huge movements, there is working class struggle, there is kind of trade union organizations, but there is no one movement that can really take all these forces towards a united goal. In 1959, a group of students that have been part of the youth organization of the PND, so the Christian Democrat Party, decide that the Christian Democrat Party is doing nothing, that having a government in exile is really nice, but it's not making progress for the people in the ground, and so they decide to set up a new organization that would be called Euskadi Askatasuna, or ETA. That was 1959. From 1959 to 1968, ETA had a lot of discussions. They painted Basque flags in the walls, they made some statements, and in the 67, they decided to go for armed struggle, as they understood that the only way of taking down Franco's regime was to armed struggle. So in 68, ETA commits the first armed action against a police officer, a known torturer of Franco. 68 to 78, Franco dies in 75, so well. 68 to 73, ETA grows in a big organization. In 73, they kill the would-be new president of the government once Franco dies. 73, 75, Franco dies. 75, 78, the so-called Spanish democratical transition takes place, and there is two different ideas in the movement. One of the groups or the main groups in the movement says an uprising is coming. There will be a popular uprising in the Basque Country, and so we have to set up new structures that will be able to cope and to help that uprising. And there's another group that says conditions are not there. We have to prepare ourselves for a long decade of armed struggle. Unfortunately, the first organization, the first group, is wrong, and they end up giving up weapons and surrendering in 82. And the other group, the group that said, well, there is still a long time to go, and there is still lots of steps to be given for a revolution or an uprising to take place in the Basque Country. That group is ETA-M, ETA military, and so from 78 to 88, this group holds an armed campaign against the Spanish state. In Spain, they used to call them the lead years because it was a really, really tough period on which both the revolutionary organizations in the ground and the state apparatus were taking and making lots of actions. So in 88 there is a resolution process, there is a negotiation process between ETA and the Spanish government of the time, the Social Democrat government. It doesn't work out. They met me for 1 year and a half, 9 years, and it doesn't work out. And so in 89 the process collapses down and we go back to multilateral violence. From 89 to 98 we have again a process of violence going on in the ground. It's again a period of important armed activity. And so in 98, Basque parties decide that there is no way of reaching an agreement with the Spanish government if there is not an agreement first between Basque parties in the ground. So from 98 to 99 there is a process that's called the Lizarra-Rassi process, on which Basque parties, instead of speaking with Madrid first, decide to speak amongst themselves. The process collapses again in what some people see as the great failure of the left movement in the Basque Country. Conditions were never as good as they were at that moment, but there is two different ways of seeing it. One of the ways is the Christian Democrats were not ready. They saw that popular support for the left parties was growing steadily, and so they decided to break down the process. What they say is that we were not ready to commit to a process on which we were going to lose. Point is, the process breaks down, we come back again to multilateral violence, and from 1999 to 2006, we go into a new phase. On this new phase, and it's the phase where I started being an activist, things that are not normal in Europe became normal for us. In 2003, the Spanish state decided to make law of the possibility of declaring illegal political parties and organizations. And so since 98, but really since 2003, different trade unions, youth organizations, political parties, medias, newspapers and radios in the Basque Country were declared illegal. And what means being declared illegal in Europe? It means that you are still a citizen and that you don't have to go underground. But that if you are arrested and found out of being a member of one of those illegal and terrorist organizations, you get charged with 6 to 9 years of prison. Since 2001 to 2003, and correct me if I'm wrong, Gary, over 60 people gets arrested for being leaders of the youth organization, for example. 120 something get arrested for being members of the political party. And from 2003, 2004 to 2007, we find ourselves in a more relaxed situation. There is secret talks going on between the Social Democrat Party and our political party at that time, even if we were illegal. And from 2005 to 2007, a new process took place. This new process learned from the errors we had made in the past, and so instead of having everything in only one table, instead of having ETA and the government speaking or the Basque party speaking, what we understood was that there was need for the 2 tracks of dialogue. So we set up those 2 tracks of dialogue. In the one hand, ETA and the government spoke, and on the other hand, Basque parties spoke between themselves. Unfortunately, in 2007, this process collapsed again. In this time, what our movement said was there was things that were the other fault, but mainly there were things that were our fault. And there were 2 main things that were our fault. One of them was we believed the other part was going to behave and take their compromises and commitments, which they didn't. And the other part was that inside our own movement there was 2 visions of what we had to get through negotiations. So 2007, we come back again to multilateral violence, and this time what the Spanish state does is they attack mainly political organizations and youth organizations. So from 2007 to 2010, December 2010, if I'm not wrong, over 200 people in a population of 3 million in the Basque Country get arrested, held incommunicado, which means they are held for 5 days under police authority with no right to see their own lawyer or their own doctor or for their family to know where they are being held. So during this 5 days space, normally torture takes place. And so in the last 5 years, as I was explaining, over 200 people have been arrested and held incommunicado. In 2009, our leadership, and I don't like saying the leadership because it was not the leadership, it was the people who had responsibility in different organizations, started to speak about the fact that we had to change strategy. Resistance is really good. We have to resist, but resisting is not weak. I know we say it sometimes, yeah, resistance will bring victory. No. Resistance is resistance, it's nice. But what we need to do is to step forward and make things happen. And so people in our movement realized that we had taken ourselves into a spiral, into a situation in which the repression of the state was having less costs for the state than it was having for us. So at this moment there was a huge debate, and I suppose everyone here can understand, taking a debate on whether your strategy is right or wrong is not an easy thing. But we did it, and so from 2009 to now, what we have done is decided to change our strategy. The main point on the strategy change has been shown by the media is that we decided to change from a political military strategy to an exclusively political strategy. But that's one of the parts of it. The main point of the strategy was we were going to win the centrality in Basque society. We were going to take our position to where we knew it was held. We knew people supported a more fair and just society. We knew people was for pro-independence or pro-self-determination positions in the Basque Country, but we were not going, or we were not being able to master all that support and make things happen. So since 2009, we changed strategies. We reached agreements with other parties on the left and not as on the left as we are, so with the Basque Social Democrats, for example, and we were able to put forward a coalition that ran for elections first time in 2011 and got 23% of the votes, 25% last elections. So we are making things happen. How does this relate to the Irish Rising in 1916? The Irish Rising in 1916 was the start of a struggle for the freedom of the whole Ireland. For us, maybe 1916 reference is far, but it's not that far when we think about asking for what should be just for a society. And what's more, for us, the struggle of the Irish people has been one of our references. It's clear in one hand because they were in Europe, because they were waging a war as we were, because they were asking for the same things, or nearly the same things as we were asking, and because in a time on which, as you said, the Western left was not so supportive of movements that took place 1,000 kilometers from their homes, Irish people was always there for us. We had one of those good things that sometimes come with imperialism is we were imposed the language in the south, it's Spanish, and that made us, or gave us the opportunity to share and to speak with people from the other side of the Atlantic. And one of the good things the Basque people has is that we have been able to take solidarity and bring solidarity to the southern part of Ireland. So for us, the Irish connection of Bolivar having 2,000 soldiers with him, well, for us it's funny because Bolivar is for us not only Bolivar, Simon Bolivar, but it's also a town, because the family of Bolivar's family came from the Basque Country. That doesn't mean all Basque people is good. Some of the worst imperialist dogs in Latin America have Basque origin also, but well, we are really proud that we have the city of Bolivar in the Basque Country. I've noted down some other things. One of them is that sometimes I hear Basque movement is something that's the only one you can find, or the best you can find in Europe, and I don't believe it's true. I think there are some other, much better, much more reactive and proactive movements in Europe. As the Catalans, for example, what I understand the Basque people is doing now is, or has been, being resistant to one of the laws of repression in the Spanish state. So all the things that are happening now to the 15 people in Madrid, to the people in Catalonia, is what we have been experiencing for 10, 15, 20, 30 years. And speaking about Chavez, for us Chavez was and is an example. First, because he was able to take power through elections on the cleanest electoral system in South America. Then, because once he got power, he didn't let himself be deluded, or he didn't let himself be taken away from his main objectives. No?
That's clear.
And then because he was able to still keep his solidarity spirit. And I'm not only speaking about Alba Alimentos, Alba Petróleo, his relations with El Salvador, with Bolivia, with Cuba. I'm also speaking about, the people who lives in Venezuela and who knew that with Chavez and with Maduro now, they were still in a friendly country. And so for us, from the 1960s to Chavez, there is lots of examples. South America holds lots of them. Igor, the Sandinistas, Freddy Ferrari Martí para la Liberación Nacional. So there is a number of people whom we have had relations and who have been for us examples. And maybe the Basque people has something to ask forgiveness for, is that we were one of those Western movements that looked much easier to South of America and to Africa or Asia. And I would, what we say in Spanish, break in the spear for us is maybe it was also for the language facility. So I think that was what I had to say on this. I hope I didn't forget anything. As a last thought about the Chavez point, is elections are happening tomorrow. I don't know if you heard the news, but Maduro was saying a group of Colombian, and they have to be Colombian, paramilitaries had entered into the country dressed as Venezuelan soldiers, that the Venezuelan soldiers had seized I don't know how many kilos of explosives and weapons. So I understand that this is a moment to stand, whether what we can think about Venezuela or Chavez, but this is the moment to stand with Maduro and with Venezuela, because this is the moment where they will need him. Because if at some point the United States and others, like Colombians, could have thought of giving a coup or trying to take away the leadership of the Bolivarian Revolution, it will be done. So I think it's very important for everyone to have in mind the importance of this historical moment in Venezuela.
Thanks, Bob. Just about the Colombian paramilitaries feeding in explosives to Venezuela, well, I'm sure that has been done with the knowledge and probably the direction of imperialism, particularly United States of America imperialism. So that's what the imperialist entity is. It's a state of constant and escalating war against us. And I'd like to just point out another place in the world where they're escalating war. You know, imperialism always puts things on its head. They try to make out North Korea, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, is somehow threatening the United States. It's not. South Korea is occupied by nearly 40,000 soldiers of the United States ever since the 1950s. It was the United States and our wonderful government here in Britain which committed 1 million troops to Korea shortly after the Second World War to conduct a war of genocide which resulted in the deaths within 3 years of 4 million Koreans. And it's the North Korea, which is officially known as Democratic People's Republic of Korea, which is surrounded by US nuclear warheads, and it has been for decades. It was in response to the tightening of sanctions against North Korea and the escalated military maneuvers, the joint military maneuvers with the United States and the South Korean puppet regime, which then resulted in North Korea saying, well, if you're going to encroach upon 1 millimeter of our territory, we have the nuclear capability to launch missiles at your military bases. And it's important to note that the missiles of the North Korean government is pointed not at South Korea, but at the military bases of the United States, particularly Guam Island in the Pacific. So really, you know, imperialism is always playing these dirty tricks, and to come back home, home as in what we're taking over here, not our perpetual historical home. but the son of that woman, that notorious and infamous woman who passed away just a few days ago, Mark Thatcher, the son of Margaret Thatcher. I've mentioned many times before, but like mother, like son, this guy was caught red-handed by the Zimbabwean and South African authorities doing what just a few years ago? Trying to conduct a military coup against Equatorial Guinea in Africa. It's a great shame, frankly, that the Zimbabweans and South Africans did not put him on trial and execute him, because that's what should have been done to someone who's trying to overthrow a sovereign nation of the global south. They put him in prison for a couple of years and released him, no doubt, after negotiation with the Brits. So really, this is what the ruling class are up to all the time. And by way of introduction to Sister Esther Stanford Jose, who I've been seeing her speeches for several years now on YouTube, and anyone who's heard Sister Esther speak will know how much of an informed and combative sister and struggler she is. And I was really happy to have discovered, when I was going on a recent Iranian English language TV show, that it was Sister Esther that would be the other panelist alongside me. So that was the first time I actually met Sister Esther face to face, and that was a great show. We had a good time, frankly, giving a kicking to white supremacy and the British state and to European colonialism. I'm actually getting the show on DVD in the next couple of days, so I'm going to upload that on YouTube so we can share that experience with a wider audience. Sister Esther, it's the British National Centre for Colonial Loot and Theft. That's actually what it is. Nearly every single piece of item in that so-called museum has been stolen from us. I forgot the exact words they use on the little labels of our artifacts. But basically it means that some colonial, excuse my French, I mean there's children in the room, so I shouldn't use the word, but there's colonial dastards, let's say, who stole this stuff and military expeditions in Africa and in Asia, and our countries actually asked for this stuff back because it's ours, particularly. And look at the arrogance. I mean, words just don't justify the arrogance of this Queen, so-called, of Britain, who has at her centerpiece of her crown what? Our diamond, the Kohinoor diamond of undivided India, and the Indian government has made official advances to the British, like the Greeks, asking for their Greek marbles back. The Indians have asked for their diamond back. But understand the message that the British state is sending us when the biggest and the most beautiful diamond in the world, the Kohinoor, is the central component part of the Queen's crown jewels. What does that tell you? And obviously you probably all know that India was the jewel in the crown, right? So they still have they still have the agenda to rule over us. And in the South American context, they're still at war with Argentina over an island that they've been occupying for a long time. That's called the Las Malvinas, which they wrongly call the Falklands Islands. And now we have, it's just incredible the way they kick us in the teeth. So Margaret Thatcher, who was not that much worse, she was just a bit more effective than other British prime ministers. The British left want to say how horrible Margaret Thatcher was, but how wonderful Clement Attlee was as a prime minister. Clement Attlee was as much of a genocidal imperialist maniac as Margaret Thatcher was. It was under Attlee's government they were conducting colonial wars of genocide against us throughout the 3 continents, right? But they want to have a funeral for Thatcher. It's paid by our taxes. It's a military funeral pretty much. It's a state funeral just weeks after they implement the benefit cuts against us, right? So the Western left, and you have Glenda Jackson MP for Hampstead, but who's championed by the Western left. Oh, isn't it wonderful she criticised Margaret Thatcher in the Houses of Commons recently? Did she say one word about what Margaret Thatcher's administration did to the people fighting British colonialism? Did she say one word about that? Did she say one word about the occupation of the British in the 6 counties of Ireland? Did she say a word about that in criticism? About Las Malvinas? Nothing. The problem the English left have got with Margaret Thatcher is that they took away some of the crumbs from the colonial loot that the British state gave us in the formation of the welfare state. We have to, as strugglers of the global south, I know this is a bit of a long introduction, excuse me sister, but we as you know how we roll, spitting the lyrics as usual. But just the last point for us to speak. But you know, we really got to got to grapple with this concept of social economic reforms within a colonial framework, right? We've got to stop asking our government, not our government, the government, to extract more colonial loot from our peoples in the homeland so we can get a bit of the crumbs in the form of a welfare state. No, I'm not against us trying to develop our standard of living, but there's two central things that has to be confronted. One, we have to really grapple with strategically how can we defend our standard of living while being in a colonial framework, right? And two, we have to ask a question, we might have to give up some of that lifestyle that we've accrued from imperialist loot to say global south needs to rise and naturally we need to fall as a result. So these are the things that we're going to grapple with, and probably Sister Esther is a lot more informed to give the answers to those challenges than I am. But anyway, I'd like you to